I'm going to talk to you about something that I framed as communicating with the unknown. How many of you know the unknown? Yeah, you can't know the unknown, right? I think that's the nature of unknown. So that is exactly the theme of my entire talk today. And I think before we go further, why are we having this conversation? We have this TED talk today. Why are we discussing about the unknown? If we don't know the unknown, like let's not know the unknown. But why now? Because now we are living in a world which is a very fast evolving world. There's a lot of technological growth. I think we are also growing the way we kill each other in wars, the way we talk to each other. Earlier it was love letters, now it's DMs and Zoom calls and Snapchat and Visco is recently what I found out. So the world is really evolving, and not only are there current problems, but there's a lot of new problems that will emerge that we didn't even know about. We don't know about even today. So now that is why this conversation for me is very critical. Uh, Not just that, I think the age in which you are, there's a lot of unknowns. I think as young people in this age group of 15, 16, we are finding out new technology, we are finding out new subjects, new careers, and that is why I think, especially being a teenager in today's 21st century world, is even I think a more daunting task. So that is why this conversation. And what is the conversation that I want to have with you today? I want to talk about something that we all possess already. I hope so. How many of you have head, heart, and hands? Raise your hand. If you have your hand, then you can raise your hand, right? Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about how we can use our head, heart, and hands to communicate in this rapidly changing world. That's what I really want to talk to you about today. Um, and what is this unknown? So when I say unknown, what do I even refer to? Right? Unknown is, as I said earlier, a very rapidly changing world, whether it's climate change or economy or careers, education, our politics, our culture, our very idea of what truth means, because now everyone has their own truth with different news websites kind of supporting that truth. Uh, and we live in a world where earlier on, if there was a crisis, it will be once in 6 months. Today, if there is a regular day, I think that's a very odd thing, because every day, like a new season of a show, there's a new episode in one part of the world or the other, and we live in a world which has a crisis of multiple crises. The UN calls it polycrisis world as well, and then there is a meta crisis behind the polycrisis, which we call as the crisis of humanity, of our thinking, of our relationships, of breakdown of trust between each other. And this is what unknown we are talking about right now. Now, now my contention is that communication is the anti-fragility of this unknown. Now, how many of you, just by show of hands, have heard this word anti-fragility? Or how many of you are hearing it for the first time? Okay, anti-fragility. Anti-fragility essentially means any system when these are those systems when they are pressured, when they are put under stress, they only become stronger. One of the examples can be the Living Root Bridge in Meghalaya. The more time it takes, the more stronger it gets. So I'm going to talk to you about how communication can possibly help you turn crisis into opportunity for yourselves. Uh, and, and I'm sure you have heard that we are calling this world a VUCA world nowadays, which is a volatile, uncertain, complex, and an ambiguous world. Within that, can we use communication to become the anchors in that volatility, whether it's our organizing committee of a little event we are doing or a bigger crisis, or can we foster leadership in uncertainty when we don't know really what's going to happen the next time, in the next second, in the next moment? Uh, can we envision order in this complex world? And can we find our meaning in this ambiguity where there are so many versions of truths which are out there. So I feel this is a very important thing in today's world where we see all the chaos, but we also see the new billionaires coming up. We also see new startups coming up and exceed and do exceedingly well in their domains. So there is something that those guys are doing or girls are doing which we can possibly learn from. And I want to talk about these nine C's to you of communication that I have learned, reflected over, which connect with these head, heart, and hands. I'll talk about each of them with you very quickly. How do we, so coming back to the topic that I talked about, how do we use our head, heart, and hands to communicate in this rapidly changing world? So let's look at our head. Do we all have a head? Raise your hand if you have a head. Okay, and I think Indians have a particular way of shaking their head. We do that a lot more than many civilizations and cultures in the world. So when I say head, I'm talking about how we think, how we understand things. In that, I have understood that clarity, curiosity, and critical thinking are some of the critical principles and values that you can possibly use. I'll talk about how they apply in the next some time. Uh, with our heart, we look at the relationships we have. And in that, I want to talk to you about communicating with care, communicating with courage, and communicating with cultural sensitivity. So if I'm in Delhi and I tell somebody that, oh, Malayo season is coming, they will be absolutely lost. What are you talking about? But now when I'm in Varanasi and I say, when is Malayo going to be available? I think there's excitement in people's lives that, okay, 2 months and we'll have a beautiful Malayo. So that's cultural, that's culture. And hands, finally, it's communication is not just about talking. Communication is also as much about action. We are not only communicating through actions, but sometimes the action itself is the communication between two countries which have been fighting a long war. The communication will bring end to the conflict itself. So sometimes communication is the action that you need. So these are the few things that I will be talking to you about, and I've decided to reflect on them through a couple of stories, uh, and uh, and these are the stories that I'm calling from the unknown. And then now, just whenever you Google search this, there is the known unknown and unknown unknown as well when people start talking about these things. So this is the first one that I'm sharing with you. If you see behind me in the screen, this is a visual from the Nepal earthquake around 10 years ago in Kathmandu. That's the time when I was finishing my law school at University of Delhi. I'd just given my exams, and if you see the picture, the only thing that remains is the doors of the house, and it can't be more ironic in terms of what remains. The only thing that remains is the doors, and that was the scale of destruction. The moment I reached there, there was no debate. There was no I am right over you. Uh, Constructiveness. You have to have communication which helps people, which moves it forward. And many times, students, we often see that we are so entangled in our egos that we forget what's the larger issue at stake. And we go for many destructive kinds of communication, and we use logic as a tool and rather abuse it to actually prevent good work from happening. So I think constructiveness is something that I would love for you to think about, uh, and have constructive dialogues with your people. And here, remember, there's something called as a performative communication, and there's something called as a real communication. So, for instance, if you are feeling hungry and you tell me, sir, I'm feeling hungry, and I'll be like, I think you should have food. So I have just performed a communication, but has your hunger gone away? No. But the right thing to do would be to give you food. That would be the better communication, which actually solves the issue. So I would love for you moving forward to become real communicators, real actors, rather than performative actors. And I think that will make you a strong leader that people will always look up to. The other thing that I want to tell you about in this same earthquake experience that I had was a lot of people were sending aid, and I think from India also we sent a lot of aid. But what happened at the Nepal airport was that because this aid was not communicated and coordinated with the government, the entire aid was just sitting at the customs clearance at the airport. So I remember landing there and seeing all the aid there simply because a communication architecture that could have created a very systematic process, simply because we did not think it was important enough and we focused on the logistics and the XYZ ABC, but the relationship, the communications, that aid was just lying there. These are a few photographs that you see. One is we were hiking, and it's a younger version of me, so 10 years ago, with the children. And then on the other side, you see how we were doing little relief efforts. All the aid work was, all the humanitarian aid had to be transported and so on. Very quickly, the last thing I want to tell you in this story is that there were villages for which we had to send our volunteers, and it could take them 5 days of trekking to actually reach from Kathmandu to that area. And all we wanted was clear insight. How many people require what? Because if you send anything and everything without communicating, it's not going to serve any purpose. So this is very important. I feel I am, and so listen before you act. What are the lessons from this story? In chaos, clarity clarity will only come from observation. A lot of questions that you can ask. Uh, Empathy. We all talk about empathy, but is empathy enough? Or should we put the right systems with the empathy and the right communication to make sure that that empathy results into some benefit or impact with people? Uh, let me move to the next story for you. This again is a very important story for me. I was involved with, and this is when I met a terror convict in a Mumbai prison, and I wasn't there imprisoned with him. I'd gone to interview him. So just we are very clear. And this is the photo of the prison where I had gone to. You'll see a very daunting kind of a massive prison, and this guy was in a life imprisonment term. And I read about him in the newspaper, as all of us read. But it was something that I want to bring home to you is the sheer curiosity. It was my curiosity which then led me to write to the police commissioner of Bombay when I read his story that he had reformed himself while he was in prison, and he was running Socratic dialogues. And you can Google that, what that means. But these are just simple conversations which help you reach closer to the truth. And this guy had managed to actually use Socratic dialogues to de-radicalize so many people in the prison. I want to tell you, and this is during the work I was doing with UNESCO on de-radicalization. So this is where my interest was very sincere, and the curiosity was very authentic, not just some fact-finding thing we do on a random Instagram, rabbit hole, as we call it. But I want to tell you one very small anecdote there. While I was there, I did a round of the prison, and there were Somalian pirates over there arrested. Now the policemen who guard the prison are Marathi. So even if the Somalian guy had a stomach ache, he could not explain it to the cop. So you know what the Somalians did? They learned Marathi, and in that prison you will see Somalian guys talking in Marathi with a local cop. And this is where you see that language and communication can transcend prison walls, can transcend years and years of all our backgrounds. And this is how much humans want to communicate with each other. So I think this is, and again here I want to talk about the one important thing. This is the entry to the prison, like we see in the Bollywood movies. While I was waiting for this guy to come and meet, I thought that he will be this very strange looking, fierce guy, and he may even attack me. But he was this really smart, handsome looking guy like Sushil or all our previous speakers before me who've come, and he spoke with me in fluent English. In the 10 years he was already in the prison, he had done a BA political science, a MA political science, and that helped me understand that it was my stereotype with which I had already walked into the conversations. And I think we all do that at some point or the other. Stereotype people into boxes. And I think this is one place where I would like you to have fresh communication, meet people in the present rather than judging them from what they have done in the past, and then see what unravels. So that is one point I always want to draw home with you. And I want to tell you the last thing about this. The only thing that led me to convince the commissioner to let me go, then the jailer, and then this guy, was simple, innocent, authentic curiosity. So curiosity is something my fellow speaker also had talked about as one of the things. So I'd like to just again remind you that that's very important. Now, the final thing is courtesy. The leaders in front, they connected me with a hospital here in Varanasi. I want to close by getting the story back to Varanasi itself. This is a hospital on the highway in Varanasi, and now we are working with about 600 of the caregivers. That's the hospital staff members. And what are we working on? Simply communication. And here is me, probably knowing nothing about nothing, interacting with nurses, doctors who have a longer career than my lifespan, and they are telling me that, sir, communication, positive communication can heal. If you tell a patient and their attendant that even if it's a very difficult diagnosis like a cancer, and you frame it in a positive way that we will do whatever it will take, versus saying your patient is not doing well, that simple thing, just framing, can change the way they perceive their own situations and the effort that they will make moving forward. So remember the power of positive communication. And this is where I want to just finally close with the three things that maybe you can take back, is that communication creates clarity when the world is falling apart. Communication can build bridges when we fear what we need to understand, and communication becomes care when we are authentic, we mean everything, and then we do it with full presence. So thank you once again, everyone, and I hope that you'll take some of these lessons forward. Thank you.